Hello and welcome to the video. Let's take a look at a Bleed Blood Mage build. The Plasma Blast is a crossbow skill that fires a piercing laser in a long line. It deals an insane amount of damage, but is very slow to use. It is an ideal skill for the Bleed archetype, which favors single yet powerful hits to inflict a long-lasting damage over time effect. The bleed damage is directly correlated to your hit damage. By default, an aggravated bleed inflicts 150% of the initial physical damage before mitigation over 5 seconds, and you can greatly improve that amount with the magnitude effect found on the passives and gear. The Blood Mage Ascendancy solves two very important nuances. Firstly, it automatically aggravates bleeding on cursed enemies, which doubles its damage. The same notable also allows you to inflict bleed with elemental damage, which is much easier to get in large quantities compared to physical damage, and enables you to use the elemental skills in the first place. The Plasma Blast is great against single opponents, but using it against hordes of enemies is nearly impossible. To supplement it, we recommend another lightning-themed crossbow skill, the Galvanic Shards. The reason is simple: it offers the best area coverage and deals a decent amount of damage in a single hit. The bleed ignores enemy mitigation such as armor or resistances and bypasses energy shield. It can still benefit from damage taken amplifications such as shock. Critical hits naturally inflict stronger bleeds, and you can get additional ailment magnitude for such hits. This setup doesn't focus too much on defense. As a blood mage, you will naturally get a lot of maximum life and a bit of energy shield, delay incoming damage, and quickly recover lost life with remnants. The Temporal Chains aura massively helps with dodging incoming threat. You can easily sacrifice a bit of damage to massively improve your energy shield or evasion rating, which is still the best defensive layer in the game. The clear speed is very good thanks to excellent area coverage and bloody explosions. Damage against bosses is absurdly high. Charging your Plasma Blast requires some practice to avoid interruptions. The build can be played with a minimal budget, but we recommend getting at least 10 Divine Orbs to ensure your Galvanic Shards are strong enough to take down most rare enemies nearly instantly. There are barely any uniques worth considering over rare items here. The only ones worth using are Maligaro's Virtuosity Gloves and the Ingenuity Belt, but they are not mandatory for build functionality. You can also opt for the few luxury items suitable for every build out there. With those gloves, your critical damage bonus is always the same. It is possible to get more damage with regular gloves, but it would be very expensive and less consistent. Use runes to improve the magnitude of your bleeds. If you have very good rings, you can use the Ingenuity Belt to boost their effect even more. Getting enough resistances can be a bit tricky, but it is the only way to get damage out of this slot. If you have plenty of currency to spend, you can use this belt to improve your clear speed even more with temporary buffs. Some of them will also improve your damage, but it won't be useful against pinnacle bosses. This charm is another universal luxury item to slightly improve your clear speed. It prevents slows and grants you the onslaught buff for a few seconds upon activation. Your gear is very typical for an attack build. You will need high amounts of added damage, skill gems, and critical strike chance. For defense, you will mix maximum life and energy shield. You will need plenty of attributes on your gear, especially intelligence for gem and armor requirements. Aim for at least 10% critical strike chance for a consistent DPS output. Almost all your scaling relies on it. You will also want plenty of added damage and skill gem levels. Attack speed is useful for smooth gameplay, but it does not affect your bleed damage. To execute enemies with Blood Hunt, you will need any spear. Its damage is irrelevant for the blood loss explosion. You can focus on attack speed and dexterity for gem requirements. The rings should provide you with tons of added damage for attacks. The maximum life modifier is optional here, as it competes with the damage prefixes. Other than that, they can give you plenty of resistances, attributes, or rarity. On your amulet, you should prioritize additional gem levels and critical hit chance. If you prefer a more defensive approach, you will need extra spirit to fit in Ghost Dance and Wind Dancer, but you won't need it in the default variant. Thanks to your ascendancy, any energy shield found on your body armor will be gained as extra life. However, You will also need energy shield recharge modifiers to make it useful during actual combat. The helmet is mostly a defensive piece that offers lots of life, energy shield or its recharge, and resistances, but it can also improve your critical hit chance. Once you fulfill the necessities, you should also include bonuses to item rarity. The boots are your only source of movement speed, but they should also provide some of the usual defensive modifiers such as life, resistances, or energy shield. At much higher budget levels, you can include additional runes or boost their effect for even more movement speed. Use the belt slot to get as many resistances as possible, so you can fit in more damage modifiers on your other gear pieces. Maximum life is also important. The ailment magnitude is a very powerful modifier for this build. It boosts your bleeds and shocks at the same time. You can speed up your bleeds as well, but finding all 3 ailment modifiers on a single jewel will be very expensive. You will also need to include at least 1 modifier to recover life and mana on kill. You will use ambrosia and concoction support gems that consume your life and mana flask to grant you tons of damage based on the amount of charges consumed. Improving the maximum amount of charges will yield better results. Plasma Blast loads a bolt that can be fired by charging up your crossbow to release a devastating piercing beam that deals an immense amount of damage. Unfortunately, the simple act of loading in the bolt triggers the ambrosia and concoction supports, so a single shot will fully deplete your flasks. Thankfully, most bosses die to single bleed anyway. Galvanic Shards fires multiple bolts in a cone that create chaining beams upon hitting an enemy. It is your main skill against multiple enemies. The pinpoint critical support grants a massive amount of critical strike chance, and its downside can be ignored thanks to Malagaro's gloves. Stacking chance to bleed is quite expensive. It is more efficient to simply use rank 3 bleed support. The Herald of Blood causes bleeding enemies to explode on death, dealing damage based on their blood loss. The Bursting Plague is another source of explosions, which bases its damage on the enemy's life. This explosion can also inflict bleed, propagating the Herald of Blood further. Voltaic Mark improves the shock on marked enemies and causes an explosion when the marked enemy dies. You can also use Bloodhound's Mark to stun them instead. The Lightning Explosion deals fairly low damage, but it will be enough to improve your clear against dense packs of monsters, such as Abyss or Breach encounters. For bosses, you only need the prolonged duration support. Blasphemy inflicts a socketed curse to all enemies around you. The curse will be weaker, but always active. Your bleeds are automatically aggravated against cursed enemies. Use the Temporal Chains curse to greatly slow down affected enemies. There are no curses that would increase your damage anyway. The Elemental Weakness curse would improve your hit damage, but it does not affect the bleed calculations. You can also raise your spirit and add the Enfeeble curse to further weaken your enemies. Blood Hunt consumes accumulated blood loss to deal 25% of it as additional, unscalable damage once again. Use it to execute bosses. This skill also consumes the active bleeding for no additional effect, so make sure to use it only if you are sure it kills the target. You can also use the Beheaded support to steal monster buffs. With the emergency reload, you can immediately reload your ammunition and empower your next shot to deal significantly more damage. This skill has long cooldown and short duration. Use those support gems to help with that. You can restore and overflow your life when you pick up the remnants. This skill is granted by your ascendancy. Higher ranks of remnant potency support do not increase the overflow, so the added delay is not worth it. The precision helps with hitting your opponents at longer distances. The charm charges are usually more useful than the flask counterpart. For the Venom Crypt quest reward, you will want to take the additional stun threshold. Lastly, the additional resistances are very useful to have. With much better gear later on, you can swap it to movement speed or global defenses. The Plasma Blast requires a high level to unlock, while Bleed and Critical Strikes need a lot of passive points to be worth it. You should start leveling up with a typical hit-based approach. Focus on generic attack or elemental damage notables. You can start picking up the Bleed notables once you unlock the Plasma Blast. critical strike notables still require a good weapon and Maligaro gloves to be worth it, so skip them until you reach maps. Remember to upgrade your weapons, rings and gloves very often so they always provide the highest amount of added damage possible for your level, which is the majority of your power during the campaign. You can also level up using the Essence Drain and Contagion setup and respect the entire passive tree once you reach maps. The final passive tree focuses on reaching 100% critical strike chance. They naturally inflict more damage, so your bleeds will be stronger, but there are also a lot of bonuses that specifically improve the bleed magnitude if it's applied by a critical strike. You will also want the regular ailment magnitude notables, some bonuses for attack damage, and improvements for your mobility. With better gear, you can quite easily drop some of the damage notables and pick up the energy shield or evasion notables for better defense. If you enjoy damage over time builds, we strongly recommend you to try this one out. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you again in next videos.